Based on what we've seen, how is co-creation crucial to deliver change?
Worst model you can have is, here's what the change, go do it. It's change done to partners, got done to associates, done to the firm. If through communication, which is always, or should be, a two-way process, you co-create what needs to happen. And so people feel ownership, they feel they have a stake in it. One, it gets implemented faster. Second, it gets implemented better. And thirdly, it addresses the people and the client issues. So that co-creation of change to deliver it, which is a real challenge for many law firms, I think is crucial for the law firm winners of tomorrow.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing I would add, Tony, to your point about motivation, the sort of almost the corollary of that is autonomy. And we've seen there's studies all over the shop around this motivation, autonomy, and that goes back to culture and trust. I think if you trust your people to deliver an output, let them get on with it. So we've seen it played out in those firms that are letting people work from home because they're happy that if they need something done by X time, it'll get done, versus those firms that want them and can't believe anyone is working unless someone is looking over their shoulder, either physically or electronically.
And that, I think, links very neatly into risk. I mean, law firms are naturally risk aware, if not necessarily wholly risk averse, and law firms will have obligations to their local regulator as to what they can and cannot do. But I think it's important when you're thinking about risk, that risk is obviously making sure that you don't make mistakes, and you'll need systems to ensure that's the case. That's entirely appropriate. But risk is a much wider issue. Risk covers, fairly obviously, being aware of where risks can arise and having a process, for example, on client acceptance. That's very important, because oftentimes you will find that there may be justifiable differences of opinion within the partnership about who we do or do not act for. And if you've got, albeit perhaps at a fairly high level, a range of, if you like, rules that you apply to any given situation when taking on a new client, that minimises the disagreements and therefore the tensions within the partnership. That's one point. The other point is thinking about what is your reputational risk that you may be facing. And it comes down to, for example, if you are acting for a client who is seen by wider society as offensive, that is potentially a reputational risk for you. That may impact your recruitment, but it could impact your client retention and acquisition. And I think thinking about the reputational issue of who you act for, how you act, what is your image, if you like, in the marketplace, is a very important element to risk management.
From the founder point of view, how do they do this? How do they go off and, live off on an island in the Mediterranean somewhere? Well, they could just retire and close the firm down, but then you've got run-off insurance, and it doesn't feel good often, because this, as you said, is their baby. This is their legacy. They could sell to their other partners, and I've been involved in those negotiations, which are quite complex and interesting. For a really big firm, you can do an IPO, but that's challenging, as Mish Kondareya have found recently. You could merge with a larger firm, merger of equals, or as 90% of our clients say, we'd like to find a smaller firm to merge into. And there may be leadership in there who can allow to retire. Or you can just simply set up some other options. An employee trust, real tax advantages, particularly in the UK, very little used by law firms, used a lot by elsewhere. Private equity is very interested, and there have been some interesting deals done both within law firms and other professional services firms. Or you could go to the big four, as Kemp Little did, and say, we'd like to be part of this larger entity. There are a lot of options. They all have their pros and cons, and it comes back to, what is it that you want this firm to become? You've built this firm up, you've put your heart and soul into it, you've been a brilliant leader, you've been a brilliant lawyer. Where do you want your legacy to go?